that back a little bit. I got my notebook out. I've rearranged a few things based on a few moments ago. So I'm hoping that I can get this the way it's supposed to lay out. So, alrighty, so I will talk a few minutes about Whispering Ponies Ranch because I've had a couple of people ask me if we could explain kind of what we are and who we are, what we do and so forth. So I'll give you a quick rundown. If you visit our website, it's still under construction simply because I don't have a lot of time to completely develop it and I don't have a webmaster.
When you get one, can you pass them around?
Yes, gotcha. Facebook is limited as what we post because the nature of what we do is very, very, very personal to these little kids who come and visit. So we're not allowed to post pictures. We're not allowed to take photos. The only thing that I get is if, when the groups are there, they take what they call safe photos. And they'll put together a little, I've got one church that's wonderful enough that they usually will put a video for their church and then they share that back to us. And then we use that kind of as our promo for the year. So those videos are wonderful because they have a way of capturing moments with the kids without exposing their faces or their identity. So you get to see that we do what we say we do. We just can't go take cutesy little photos like whenever you send money to these people in, other countries and you've got this cute little baby with the big brown eyes. I can't do that. So I can show you lots of cute little ponies with big brown eyes. So you'll see a lot of little animals on our website. But we don't have, with Facebook even, we are limited because Kate is mostly the one helping me right now update with the page. And when you've got your hands on an animal, it's hard to then take photos. And so it's a challenge right now because we don't have a plethora of people. I wish we did, but we don't. So, and we're kind of in the off season right now where we're not doing a whole lot, but we're fixing to get hit pretty hard and heavy in about 2 or 3 weeks. But in any case, what we do at the ranch is we started out a dream years ago when we were in Oregon as a family. This all was a family thing. God had brought us all to a place called Camp Davidson, and in Oregon, in Sisters, Oregon. And we were there, we made a 1-year commitment and we ended up staying about 7 years. So I love that divine number. We learned so much during those 7 years, and in the midst of all of those years, we were introduced to a group, an organization called Royal Family Kids Camp. And the Royal Family there, what we loved about them is that of all the groups that would come and go, these little ones, and I choke up, so you're going to have to just bear with me. When they get off the bus, some of them are like, you can tell it's that spit in your eye because they've had to fight already at this age to survive. And then other ones, they're like, they don't even know what to do with that. So they're very, very the opposite. So you can't judge what's going in by the exterior. You don't know what this child at that size has been through. But in any case, we would see many, many times these little kids would arrive at Camp Davidson, and just by having 1 week in nature, recreation, getting to eat food. Here's my word, food. Sorry. I laugh at myself because I always pronounce food with a very heavy F at the beginning, and don't ask me why. But in any case, my kids laugh at me. But so every time I say it, I go, they're watching. But anyway, some of these little kids, they don't get food, and so whenever they do, we've had them stick it in their pockets. They'll hide it under their bed because they want to make sure they have something to eat later. They do all kinds of weird things, but usually when they get off the bus, they are not the same when they leave. The ones who are spitting are smiling, and the ones that are doing this are conquering. And I'm telling you, it's a powerful, powerful, powerful thing that we do. So what we do is we invite these groups into our ranch, and as a staff, we facilitate the grounds. So when they come there, Catherine oversees the kitchen and makes sure we have good food. And there's lots of it. And they get to have salad with croutons and little sunflower seeds and little craisins. And it's not just green on a plate, it's the whole meal. In fact, come and see someday. You'll see our buffet outshines a lot of restaurants. Oh, so, yeah. Oh, Peggy was there. She knows. Thank you for that. I have a witness. And Tammy too. Tammy knows. Yeah. And so we feed them good food. It's not just a chicken stick out of a box. It's really delicious, and it comes with gravy and mashed potatoes, and they do it up right. And the buffet that we have is this great big, it's like a sushi bar boat. It looks like a boat, but they deck it out with all kinds of delicious foods. And then the desserts are elsewhere because we don't have room on this buffet to put the desserts. Anyway, we do all kinds of fun things to accommodate what the groups would want. There's one group that comes in the morning. It's on their birthday day. And every group has a day that they set aside for birthdays. Because believe it or not, some of these kids do not have a birthday. They are not celebrated. I remember one little kid, oh my gosh, one little girl came in and she was enamored because it was her first birthday card ever. She didn't even want to play with the gift yet. She was so like, I got a birthday card? She was so excited because somebody cared enough to give her a card. I mean, it breaks your heart. We take so much for granted. Sorry. Anyway, so on birthday day, this one group comes in. They want oatmeal, but they want it served with ice cream. And I asked him about that, and he says, well, by the time they put all the sugar on it and all the milk, it's the same thing, but it makes it much more like, wow. I thought that's so brilliant. It's the same stuff, it's just the way you package it. So I love that. And yes, a lot less easier, and it's less messy, and it's all in one scoop, and you're done. And the kids love it. Anyway, that's just one little thing that they do. There's another thing that they do while they come there for the week. And every group usually does these things simultaneously. Every group usually does these things for the kids. One of the other things that they will do, not only do they have a birthday day, they have a talent night. And so these little kids, they get to shine. And I'm telling you, they don't care what the kids want to do. I still laugh, and it's still one of my favorite moments when they're at the ranch, right? And there's all these horses all over the place. But these little kids decide they want their counselor to be the horse. And so they're on stage, and they're roping, and they're riding the counselor all over the place on the back. And that was their talent. And everybody laughed, and they got applause for that. And they got recognized for that, but it was what they wanted to do. There's tumbling. There are sometimes when kids sing. There's you don't know what it might be. Tell me some of the other odd things that you wouldn't expect a child to do at a talent festival. You guys help me remember some. Oh, okay. So like the coordinator, his name is Max. They picked Max and two other guys, and the girls wanted to put makeup on them. So you can't watch this happen because they have their back turned like this, and the girls, you can see their faces, and they're like, oh my gosh, and you get like, and then at the end they have to turn around, and then whoever is the funniest or whatever they want to do, the kids get all applause for that. That's another thing that we've seen, but it never ends. Every year they bring other funny things we've never seen before, and so it's so fun. But as a staff, we are invited to visit with these kids, not like on one-on-one, but we get to stay there and observe because we're servicing them all day. So we're part of that group on that way. They do another thing, and the girls, they do a tea party. And it's a very, very tea party. It's like, little teacups, and they get to dress up in a dress if they want to. And so we have all kinds of dresses that they keep on the grounds that are old prom dresses. And it does not matter if these dresses are old, it doesn't matter if they're too big, because these ladies that bring the counselors, the adults, they'll take these big giant dresses, and it doesn't matter how big that is. They'll take these little clips and clip it way down. And so this little girl gets to wear the dress of her choice, and she gets to go to a tea party, and they do all kinds of fun things and the boys do a tailgate, a barbecue on the tailgate. So they get to do that kind of stuff, and they're outdoors, and they're playing football, cooking, that kind of stuff. It's really fun. So, and there's a couple of other things that they do, but not all of the groups do. They usually have a movie night, and so the facilities that we have accommodates pretty much whatever they want to do. And so we have a swimming pool there for the kids. They love that. Before they started coming to where we at, they had a little wading pool that was about 14 feet around and 2 feet deep, and that was their pool. And they had to take shifts because they could only allow 6 or 8 in at a time. So now they actually get to take the whole boys in, and they can get up to 35 people, and that's usually about half of what the group is there, because we usually average about even Steven, boys and girls in total. I think our biggest group so far is 40 kids, but they have 2 adults per child. So there's a lot of extra surplus help. Yes, they have to have two deep. Yes, it's a very strict. You can't. Yeah, there you go.
How long were they there?
They were there. They usually arrive on a Monday, and their first meal will be lunch, and then they leave on Friday. But it's not over yet. When they leave our grounds on Friday, then they go back to their church, the church that has pulled us together and has worked hard to get the counselors and all of the help together. And then they have an award ceremony. And these little kids, every single one of them get an award. And I think it's so cute. One of them got the frog kissing award, because when he was over fishing at the pond, everything he kissed, he had to kiss and throw back. He had to kiss it because he wanted to, I don't know why. Why does a kid kiss a frog? I don't know. But he wanted to do it, and they let him. And so it was a memory for him. And something about memories, and I want to say this is because it's one of the things that as a Whispering Ponies Ranch, what we do is we want to leave these kids with as many memories as possible. You've heard the term trigger moment, and you think trigger moment, right? Because it's the thing that's going to be your last thing. The opposite. I want lots of good trigger moments that make them think, wow, I remember back when I rode the counselor, and it was a blast. And I remember hearing about Jesus when I was there. And remember what I told you last night, the only little bit about Jesus I ever got was a color book on Easter Sunday. Mm-hmm. And it stuck with me because God's word is not void. And so what they're doing for a whole entire week, and we're partnering with them because they don't pay us anything to be there. And we're thankful, and it has a lot to do with how we run our company, and we have supporters that help us do that. And then all of the groups that come in, they take care of whoever they bring in. And then we take care of all of the facilitating of the horses and the petting zoo and all the animals. That comes under Kate and I. And then we have a rock wall. I want to say it's, 16, 20 feet tall? It's tall enough that a little kid this tall is a challenge. And if you have never climbed a rock wall, I've had some of the adults go, wow, this is higher up than it looks. Yeah. When you're down here like that, it's not too much, but when you're up there looking down, if you have any sensitivity in heights at all, you're going to know that's a challenge. And the thing about the rock wall is they get to take their time climbing. And if they don't want to climb it, they get a chance to stand over here and watch. And I'll tell you, some of the most wonderful moments is not the ones that ring around and bing. We're happy that they have the courage to do that, but sometimes you get that one. Man, I saw your little, this high up, and he's already starting to waver. You don't know what's going on in the life of a child that they can't trust. You know what I mean? But it is a trust issue because you're on the other end of the rope here, right? I'm on belay, and they're climbing, and I tell them, look, when you go up there, I've got you. Yeah, right. Some of them have done it before, and they understand how it worked, but the first timers, it may take them 2 or 3 times. But I'm going to tell you something. One little boy, it took him about 5 times. But finally, and I mean, he was like almost so petrified we would have to talk him back down. But he got all the way up and he rang the bell, and when he did, because there's a bell at the top, everyone in that auditorium was like, yay, that's so wonderful. And he had never had that kind of affirmation before. So that changed his life. You can know that every time he sees a rock wall, that's what he's going to remember. That's going to connect him to all those people who loved on him and gave him food and gave him toys for a birthday that he didn't even know he could have. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is just this magical thing that happens all week long. So what we do is we have our own stuff that we do what we do. And it's because I cannot teach you how to drive a horse and then 2 days later doing it. If you don't know what you're doing, we don't let you do it. Because it is a safety issue and our insurance is very, very in partnership with this on that as well. The rock wall is orchestrated by Catherine's husband, Joe, my son. And also he does a zip line. Our zip line, I think, is about 400 feet long. And the crow's nest is about...
Only about 14 or 14 feet tall.
So 14 feet tall, folks, it is not nature to jump off a 14-foot platform. It just goes against your everything in you. But it's always, and Joe's a great coach. He's never pushy, and he never makes you feel you have to make a decision. It's never like, you got guys waiting, none of that. At all. So, and they're taught. I mean, the kids and all the counselors are told beforehand, now, this is not a relay race. This is a challenge, and it may take some of your kids a few minutes to get to the other side. Boy, but once they do, by the time they get to the other end, which is where I'm at, they're screaming, I want to do it again, I want to do it again. And it's so wonderful to see what they've conquered something. And that little experience that they have, going up a rock wall or zipping down a zip line, they conquer something that is a frightful thing for them, and it teaches them, hey, I did it. I did it. It's the first positive thing that you know what I mean? So they build on that, and then they can't wait to come back next year. And so, in fact, at the end of the week when it's time for them to leave, sometimes they will hide. They'll run and hide. So we have had, they lost a little girl once, and took them forever to find her, and she was hiding in our dry storage behind our food. They found her, and it was like, they're sad. They cried. Oh my gosh. But anyway, they love it, and the whole thing is, it's the positive affirmation that they get all week long. Now, some of them, they will have meltdowns during the time that they are there. I had one of them melting down in front of me because I couldn't know how to make an origami. And he wanted to make an origami. And all he wanted was, and I mean, it was very intent. And I'm like, I've never done an origami. I don't know. And I'm trying to figure it out. It's Kate, Google origami for me, Kate. So she Googled and she's telling me, okay, now you fold the other one. And I'm folding it. And he's still angry because I'm not getting it done fast enough. And so he's just angry and he's screaming. And he says, he was really angry. And he says, I forget what it was he says, but I says, but don't you care that I care? I care. And he looked at me and stopped dead in his tracks. We finished the origami. And then I think it was Max came along after a little bit. And of course, Max knew all about it. So he's like, took over from there. But there was something that happened in that little child at that moment, because later on, this little child ended up telling stories to his counselor that had to be reported. So you know that whatever was in that child to make him so, what was it Allie said about anger?
It's a secondary emotion.
It's one of the ones that they used to survive. So anyway, okay, that's what we do, and it never ends. There's always stories every year. There's a new story of something that you can tell this child. Lots of them are going to never be the same. I remember one girl, and I'll say this real quick, came in on the bus, and she got sick 2 or 3 times on the bus. In fact, they almost sent her home. And the director of that particular group said, give it a minute. Let's get her to the campground. Just give it a minute. So they got there, and she's like this. She gets off the bus, and she's already been sick a couple times, and she don't know what's going on. She got off the bus, and guess what's there to meet her when she gets off the bus? 2 or 3 of them, itty-bitty ponies. All kinds of colors and all kinds of cutesies, and now we actually have goats and a couple of other kinds of critters that meet them at the bus. And it's the first thing, and at first it's a welcoming committee of little critters, and they love that. It immediately puts them at ease. But anyway, she gets off the bus, and by the end of that week, by the time she's had birthday parties and swimming and rock walls, and that was before we had our zip line, but the rock wall. She got on that rock wall, and then when her first attempt, she didn't even want to be doing it. But by the end of the week, man, she was just climbing that thing and ringing them bells, cheering herself and cheering others. She was not the same person. Wow. She went a 360 turnaround within just a few days. That, huh?
By Wednesday, she was different.
Yes, yes. Last year, this is how much these kids love this, what they do. I had a little girl on Wednesday. She come to me and she goes, "Do I have to leave tomorrow?" I said, "No, tomorrow's Thursday." "Okay, good." She was already beginning to feel that. I don't want to leave. I just am having too much fun. This is too much love. I'm surrounded by too many glorious and wonderful things. But the most amazing thing about it is it's all Christ-centered. Just so you know, everything that is represented on the ranch, from the puppet shows to the music to the animals to the rock wall and to everything, it's all about them and it's all about their relationship with God. So when they leave, they have had the gospel, and it will not come back void. Because I was there when I was a kid, and I didn't have rock walls and all that stuff. But I had people who cared enough to spend a few minutes with me. Anyway, so that's what we do, yes.
Have you been at it long enough that you have children who are grown now?
Yes. Yes, thank you for asking. Because my monument moment was the first year when we had a little girl. This is a true story. She was there the first year that we ran our camp at this particular camp at Whispering Ponies Ranch. And she tells me this story. She's a little bitty girl, and she tells me this story about a little horse that she has named Cheyenne. And I want to know, we're trying to train it, and I don't know, do you think, she's asking me all these questions, do you think I can do this? Do you think this horse is okay to keep? Is it, she's asking me all kinds of questions, who knows? And I'm encouraging her, sure, you just take time and patience and lots of love and scratches, and, you'll get there. And so then, amazingly enough, about 2 or 3 years later, here comes a junior counselor. And she's like walking along beside me because we're getting stuff ready for the horses to happen. And when I say beside me, I'm never alone with the child. We're just right outside the arena getting a bucket of water or something. And there's people all around me. Anyway, she's telling me this story about this little horse that she's been working with, and she wanted to know, do you think I'm doing the right thing? And I just, the story sounds really familiar. And she tells me the horse's name, and she says, "Do you not remember me?" And I go, "What do you mean?" And she says, I'm the girl, I was here. And she told me who she was, but she had grown so much, I didn't recognize her. But immediately when she told me that it was her, I stopped dead in my tracks and I said, "Oh my gosh, I love you." And you want to know why? Because when she left her first year, she says, "I'm coming back to be a counselor." So that was my first return. And she came back. And she's there now. Every year she comes back. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the mentoring process with what we do, partnering with these organizations, is effective. It's working. These kids are changing. They're grasping onto the purpose of life. They're grasping onto life itself. They're grasping onto a higher calling than what they are living. And so I'm telling you, you can't put it all in one basket. It's a lot. But yes, thank you for asking that, because that's happening right now as we speak. We've got these little kids who have aged out. And that's a sad thing too. Because until recently. So I'm telling you these, and you guys go home and pray about this. Because here's the thing, one of the reasons that we like to partner and not do it all ourselves is because it makes us better at what we do. These organizations who come together to do this, they need you. They need your volunteer help. They need people that are willing to go one-on-one with the kids. And that's the only biggest challenge that they have right now, because we have helped them take care of all the finances. It used to be that they had to pick and choose because they didn't have enough money. Now they have to pick and choose because they don't have enough people. There's 2 organizations that we mainly partner with right now, and it's because we are the most familiar with them, and it's Royal Family, and the other one is called Teen Reach Adventure Camps. Track, exactly. And we do their annual training in our ranch every year in March. In fact, it's coming up first week of March. We've got, I know Catherine's thinking about the kitchen right now. I threw her into the kitchen. Sorry, come back out. But in any case, They do their leadership there, and then they, and this is, I'm not talking about just the local. I'm talking about when they bring in people, these are people from other states that come to our camp to learn what to do so they can take it back and do it in their community. So this is a huge, really a wonderful thing that we get to do. Anyway, and then one of the Royal Family camps holds their training annually at our place as well. And that gives our people opportunity to refresh because we're all trained in the Royal Family as well. And so for that group, we're pretty kind of an extension to them. We still don't take the responsibility of counselors because that would take away from what we do. And the reason they are there with a counselor is so that they can learn to trust that person. So if you've got 15 people, Whispering Pony staff trying to do the thing, we're not, it don't work. So we all know our lines and we know our boundaries, but that's basically what we do. These kids come from all over the place. I have, I've got a brand new camp just signed up out of Oklahoma. So that's 2 out of Oklahoma, 2 camps out of Arkansas, 3 out of Missouri, and that's just the Royal Family. And then I have 1 camp of Teen Reach, and the Teen Reach, what they do is once they take the kids that graduate out of Royal Family, that's what they do. And then, so these little kids, when they turn 12 years old and they cry because they want to come back next year, Teen Reach is now developing, and it's a newer sister ministry, but this is what they're doing. They're trying to pick up that slack, because when a kid ages out at 12 years old, look, guess what, man? They're hitting puberty. They're going to go into some of the hardest times of their life ever. Back when you was that age, man alive. Not only is your body just changing, people around you are so cruel and hateful. Why? I don't know, but they are. That age is just brutal. So they're just being right back out into where they came from at the worst time of their life. So this is where Teen Reach comes in, and they're now taking these kids and mentoring them and taking them to our place. And I'm telling you, they all come in like, I would love you to see a 16-year-old boy drive a pony that tall. You would not believe the smile. So cool. But they don't say it with the other, it's always, they can't let the baby, I see it, but it's always when they've got their back to the group. But they'll look over at me and they'll go, so cool. And I've had a couple of those boys say, I'm coming back as a counselor. I said, come on.
So Teen Reach comes back to your, which one is your Whispering?
Whispering Ponies Ranch is the facilities that we
And
own.
then you minister to both teen and
Yes.
the kids.
Royal Family is the younger of all these ages. And it's a little bit of an older ministry, although it's not very old. But they're reaching so many kids. And it's, if you go to their website and check it out,
They just recently changed their name to the For the Children.
well, hold on. They actually recently then, I think, changed it back.
Change it back? So you got too confused.
Wayne Tush, I think, is in the middle of it right now, which is the founder. So something happened, we don't know, don't ask. They can deal with name changes. Me, I want to deal with what we do.
Where's your ranch located?
It's just a little ways on the outside of Crane, Missouri. So it's about an hour and 15 minutes from here. And then anyway, the Teen Reach. So here's the funny part about all this. When we were at Camp Davidson and we were learning all about Royal Family, the Royal Family, I kid you not, this is how God works. Wow, this is one of those moments that you just scratch your head and go, it had to be God. Anyway, so while we were there, the group that would bring the Royal Family Kids Camps, the directors, were the ones, I was telling someone earlier, that they got this heart because whenever the kids would age out, they had nowhere to go. So they went to talk to the founder of Royal Family, and he goes, well, what are you going to do about it? She said, thanks a lot. So they ended up doing a sister ministry called Teen Reach, and that director is now the national president and overseer of Teen Reach. But it's that same director that was at our camp at Camp Davidson. This is how we even found out about Royal Family, and this is what they've done with their ministry. They've branched it out into to the other ones. But they do boys on one weekend, and then they'll do the girls on the next weekend. That way they get the boys and girls, you know, because when they get that age, you're not going to communicate to nothing if there's a co-ed scenario going on. So, I mean, you're not going to deal with stuff, but it's going to be like a lot of fighting and a lot of innate. I'm telling you, there was the first teen boys that came in, and it was already who's going to be the boss, because they have a pecking order. They all do. They have to, some macho thing. Anyway, there was one boy that was particularly kind of like going to make sure he's the boss. I can't explain to you because I was not in the intricate workings of those groups one-on-one, but I can tell you that there was a lot of prayer happening. And at the end of that weekend, the young man that was all in your face, he had some fear. He had some fear. And I'll tell you something happened in him. And it had to be one of the counselors just constantly feeding good thoughts. You're strong. You're a strong leader. And at the end of the weekend, he was becoming that, because he is a strong leader. Because you have leadership abilities. You're going to either be a good leader or not a good leader. So he was heading down not the right one. But through that weekend, and hearing positive, you've got leadership skills, I can see that in you. Man, by the end of the weekend, he was conquering his fears, ziplining. And the zip line, we actually did an extra session for that group because he was too afraid the first time. So we made another session. They asked us, can we try one more time? I think he's ready. So we did. We made it an all boy thing, the whole group. But we made sure he had his ample time, and he did it. And like I said, on the receiving end, because we get to take him off. He said, oh, that was so cool. I want to do that again. And so you can see that this kid, he's changed, because now not only is he conquering fears, the leadership that he began to distribute among those boys was very positive. And they were cheering him on. They were buddies and comrades at the end of the weekend because of all that mentoring that happened just in those 3 days. 3 days. That was one weekend. Girls, same thing. I could tell similar stories, but you guys get the idea. This is what we do, and this is what we partner with. And we are lucky and thankful and fortunate, and God has allowed and provided that we don't have to make them worry about the money. That allows them to bring more kids as long as they've got people to help them get them there. So that's your mission. Go back and find out where you can do, and go somewhere and figure it out. I mean, there's lots of them around. They just developed a brand new royal family out of Oklahoma, and they just signed up. And they took the very last opening I had at all, and that was the very last week of July going into the first couple of days of August. So that stretches our staff, because we work hard all summer. And trust me, by the time we're done, we're done. So we're going to stretch one more year, because we can do this. We got this. God's got this. And there's going to be kids walk away. There's going to be kids changed. At the end of that next week, there's going to be more kids that have had a new purpose and a new lease on life. So that's what we do. That's who we are. Kate is my, I think I mentioned this last night. She actually is my animal manager. I would call her the director, but she's not doing that groups yet. But we're going to let her get a handle on the, she's a critter person anyway, and I think she's happy wherever she's at. I'm telling you. Just saying, she's got that kindred animalness in her that I grew up with. So, anyway,
Where do
yeah.
these children come from? Are they specifically from counselors? Are they fosters?
They are wards of the state, and wards of the state. And these Royal Family and Teen Reach people go to the state and say, okay, we have this camp that we run. So, you know, what you got? I remember in particular there was one year, and I'm going to say this just from a vague memory, so don't quote me as gospel truth, but I remember one little boy was not supposed to get to come because he was just too far. His case was too far gone. He's not suited. They would not allow him to come because somehow the director talked him into coming, and that little boy was changed. The rest of that whole thing. So she remembers. So see, this is a child that everybody else had given up on. Oh no. And a lot of it has to do, and I'll just be out there right now and out front. It's not just all the food and all, the animals play such a part. Now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I don't really care, because it's for me right now. Where do I go with this? So I want to share with you these little animals, and I've been biting at the bit to do this anyway. But we had I'm starting at the back and working forwards. I'm telling you, she was my last one. Well, she's first on the list today. Had a little tiny horse named Chigger. Now, her name was Chigger when she came to me. She was about 4 months old or 5 months old when I went and got her. She was a dwarf, and I don't know if you understand what that means, but dwarf horses, they develop some pretty nasty things. There's about 4 or 5 different kinds of dwarfism, and some of them live forever. They're just frumpy looking in there. I've got one little one, her name's Snickers, and she's my dachshund pony because she has legs that long and a body that long. She's funny, but she's very sweet. Chigger was better proportioned, but she was one of the ones where she had a very bad overbite or underbite. We call it monkey bite when it goes under. And so we had to put her immediately. I had to put her on Chigger soup, we called it. I'm just going to tell you Chigger soup because you might hear me say that again. Chigger soup was a soft pelleted senior food that when you add water it gets soft. Well, it would digest itself anyway if you don't add nothing. But we were putting oil in there so that, because what happens with a dwarf is when they eat food that goes in, because when their body grows, their belly and all of their intestines will grow. This particular kind of dwarfism, not all of them, but Chigger had this. And so her skeleton did not grow. But this is why they have pot bellies, because everything inside grows. Well, when you got all that pressure growing inside, it's pressing up against the heart and the lungs, and then the intestines get to where they don't work properly, because what goes in gets stuck, because there's nowhere for it to go. So we immediately put her on oil. So my first phone call after, it was a semi-rescue. And the reason I say semi is because the person I got this little horse from, I had told him not to breed the mare, because it was a long story. Anyway, I had given him a little mare, and I told her, never breed this little mare. I've been told she don't do good babies. At the time, I didn't even know what a dwarf horse was, but when I saw the first horse out of that out of that mama, I told him, I said, never do this again. Please don't do this again, because that little baby lived 2 weeks, and then it was dead, and it was dwarf mass. It was worst dwarf I've ever seen. And he did it again, and Chigger was born. And he did it again, and then he did it again, and Chigger's the only one that ever lived. And finally the mama died. So that was the end of that. But Chigger, when I found out, because he called me, he says, I've got this little horse and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I'm coming to get it. Long story, I'm nutshelling it. I went and got it and brought her home. And I did not know when I brought her home when I was bringing home. I only knew that this little horse was going to go someplace else if I didn't go get her. So I went and got her and I brought her home. When I first brought her home, she didn't have too many bad things, except her monkey bite. That started happening right after about her first year. Her back legs started going out like this. We tried everything we could come up with. I tried corrective shoes, I tried leather straps, I tried everything there was, and nothing would stay on. And so then we just resolved, well, we're just going to try it. Instead of trying to fix that, we're just going to treat the bones, in which we did. But anyway, we put her on a Chigger soup, which had also beet pulp and some other minerals and different things in there that would help with all that. Okay, so fast forward now. This was before we had our first year at the ranch, and whenever we brought Chigger, and she was automatically a part of our ranch because we used her a lot in all things we did. Broiler festivals, and when we started visitations, we took her there. We did all kinds of things with Chigger. And she, if you can imagine, she was, the dog that's running around? Bigger than Chigger. That dog towers over our little Chigger that we had. Yeah, she was 35 pounds and was about 18 and a half inches tall. So anyway, but Chigger had this little personality, and you hear them chuckle. Because here's what you guys, maybe you don't know that horses actually have a personality. We call it ponyality. And I'm telling you, every single one of these animals are different. And you look at this big field full of horses, and a bunch of beautiful little horses. But no, there are horses in these fields that some of them have neurotic nervousness. Some of them are fierce, and some of them are the bottom of the pecking order. Some of them have allergies. Some of them have, I mean, they're just like kids. They have things they like. They have things they don't like. Some of them are afraid of this, and some of them think, what's that? So not every horse is afraid of everything. So anyway, back to Chigger, and then I'll come back to that. We took Chigger, and she was #1 stall in our barn whenever the kids would come. And because she was such a gentle soul, she would just lay there and let the kids pet on her. And I'm telling you, not just the kids. I saw adults come to tears when they would see and hear her story. And I mean, she had such a profound effect on all of the people, everybody. Everybody loved Chigger. There was one person that Chigger didn't particularly like, and it was kind of a love-hate situation, because it was my main ranch hand. He's retired now. My main ranch hand, his name was Gene, but Gene was the dirty work guy. So like when the farrier came, he would have to hold Chigger down because she didn't want the farrier messing with her feet. And it was partly, I think, because it was painful for her. Because at the end, when she got older, her little arthritic legs were just crooked as it could get. And but anyway, so Jean would hold her down when she had to have her shots, and boy, I'm telling you, she would pin her ears and stick out that bottom lip. And she had an expression, and it was fierce. And Jean wasn't allowed to go in the stall now for a day or so. But then she'd warm up because he had grain and stuff. But you know, they always come back around when you got a bucket. Just saying. Anyway, Chigger, there is one little, now remember, these are kids that are like 10, 11, 12 years old when they have to leave. There was one little 12-year-old boy sitting in there petting Chigger one day. And he was just, I mean, it was the softest, most loving, gentle moment. I just love Chigger so much. And he's just petting on her. I just love her so much. She's just so beautiful. She's just so beautiful. And this is a 12-year-old kid that I know when he leaves, he's going to go out into the puberty world and into the brutal 7th grade, where they're just, that's a horrible time. That was the hardest year of my life, 7th grade. But this little child had that moment with Chigger. So I know that there was something happening in him, in his life, that he got to spend a moment uninhibited, unafraid, with a little thing that he could just innately love and trust. There was total trust in that little kid. He wouldn't have touched her if there weren't. Anyway, so that was the effect that Chigger had. And we had her until, oh man, we took care of her 24/7. Sorry. She got to where she couldn't even get up to eat. So we would go down and we'd get her and we'd help her get up so that she could go potty correctly. Otherwise, she had to lay down, and it was not good because she would try to get up and she would spin. And so we would make sure that we would go every 3 hours, all night. And we would make sure that she had what she needed, water. The last week that she was alive, every time I brought her water, anytime I brought her food, she would grab, literally with her mouth, her bucket of grain and throw it at me. Just like that. So I called my veterinarian and I said, you need to come out and visit me. And Chigger just had said, I'm done. I hurt. I'm in pain. I can't do this no more. I gave it my best shot. But it's my time. So we made her comfortable. She went to sleep and is buried in a very special place in my backyard. And she will always be a part of the ranch and part of me. But she left a void. And I want you to remember something about leaving a void. Because she was tiny, but large. She impacted the whole ranch. Everybody that came. It didn't matter who you are. You can't look at this little critter and not see God's amazing grace in this little critter. Anyway, she left a void. And so, I'm really pig-trailing today, guys. She left a void, and we went ahead and had kids camp as usual the year after she was gone. And it was not the same. It was just not the same. We did not have that amazing little adorable entity in this first stall that was just so soothing. There were people, one of the counselors asked if had a child so unruly that when he came to visit the barn, she said, "This is the calmest I've seen him. If we have issues with him, can we bring him up?" And we said, "Sure." Well, then that was Chigger. That was Chigger's effect. And so, anyway, this next year, Chigger was not there. And I was thinking, okay, I'll be the one who, oh no. There were kids who wanted to know, where's Chigger? Well, she's in a better place right now. Anyway, long story is that the following year, we were not supposed to start the petting zoo for another year or so. But the void that she left made us understand that we needed something besides a bigger little animal that the kids could really get on their knees and scratch and pet and love on and not be afraid of. And so that was right about the same time Kate came aboard. And of course, my husband, he is an enabler. He is an animal enabler. I will go home and he'll have little ads and he's printed off and he'll go, "Hey, looky here. What do you think about that one?" So that was like, I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I mean, this is like a year or two early. "No, yeah, sure, go for it." So that's how we all went back to Kate and I said, "What do you think, Kate?" She said, "Don't tease me. Just don't tease me." And I said, "If you're for real and you realize you have to make this happen, because I can't. I've been here all this time and it hasn't happened yet. I'm not going to do the petting zoo thing because I got my hands full just with what I'm doing." So she took the Ferdinand by the horns he don't have, and has Ferdinand's our little zebu steer, and he's adorable. He has a nickname we'll get to in a minute. Anyway, she has taken that. Kate has taken the bull literally by the horn, and now we have our petting zoo has opened for the first time. What we did and what we do is we have little stations, and all of our family and the immediate staff are the ones who make. Sorry, not bugging me. And we have the little goats here, and we have sheeps next door. Then we have a couple of miniature donkeys, and we have our zebu, and we have a new zebu. He's still getting acquainted with everyone. And then we have alpacas, and then of course I've got a couple of little miniatures in there, horses. And but then we make stations, and each little station, when the kids come in, at the end of their whole session, because we do pony carts first, but then when we're done with the carts, we take time for those kids to be able to, we call it free for all. What we have a name for it, I can't remember. Free time or something, but they have to stay with their counselors, and they can't let their counselors get lost. That's the only rule. They got to make sure that they hang on to their counselors, because we don't want counselors running wild through them. Huh? Animal encounter, thank you for that. Yeah, so we call it animal encounter. And so they will go and they'll visit this little, and they don't have to stay together. They can just do this random. And anyway, at every little station, they get a little card that has fun little information about those little species and the names of the ones they have visited. And so on one side, it's a picture with the name so that they know that this is Banjo and Buttons, our two little boy goats. These are the 4 alpacas that we have, and so forth. And then they get to pick a little trinket out of a little basket. So when they come to visit the little miniature horse station, they get a little miniature horse about that tall. Yeah, and I've got variations. Yeah, you were asking me that, that's right. And then at the donkey station, we try to get something that's very similar to what they visited as a memento to take home. And in those little cards that they have, believe it or not, they love them. Because the royal family give these little kids a little autograph book or a little photograph book, and these are just perfectly sized to stick in the back of that. But so we have another little thing that we have called Pony Row, and Pony Row is like 13 paddocks that go up the hill from the dining room to the arena. Gives you something to look at and play with when you're walking. And they do feeding twice a day or whatever. They don't have to feed at all, but if the groups decide that they want their kids to experience that, we work with them and do a pony feeding. So I'm walking, the first year that was last year that we did this, I'm walking up Pony Row, and we're throwing, food and doing things. And she says, "Did you know," one of the little girls goes, "Did you know," when she rattled off something about the alpacas, and I said, "You're right, how did you know that? It was such a random thing, how would you know that?" She goes, It's up there. We had the animal encounter thing, and I got this little card, and she was all excited. And I'm thinking, wow, this is another thing for them to put in it. So this is, again, what we do. We want to try to make as many of these fun things. Much more to do. We're building right now what we call Pony Gulch. Pony Gulch is a place where you're going to hear banjo, all kinds of really fun, happy music, but you get to see Grandpa on a rocking chair, and of course Grandma's over here doing laundry. And these are going to be actual animatronic little things that have some movements. Not all of them, but some of them will actually be moving. And then you drive a little bit ways further, and then there's going to be a couple of mannequins swinging on a bench. And we're just now developing this. One of the, this is an old west front, so like it's an old ghost town type idea. And one of the doors that opens up down there, one of the windows, I mean, it's like a mercantile, and the windows open up, and it'll be a puppet stage. So that these groups can use the puppet stage, and in the future, should our family or our staff develop different things that they can see and interact, that we'll be able to do that. And then there's also an Indian village encampment, and then we've just introduced two other concepts, and we're still working on all of this. And one of them is going to be called Diamond's Mine. And Diamond is one of our horses, and we're going to build a little mine that the kids can get to go through in the train that we've got. And but they get little trinkets, or they'll get some gold nuggets or something when they enter Diamond's Mine. And at the end of Diamond's Mine will be a little pit stop called Gemma's Exchange. And see, Diamond and Gemma are brother and sister, and they actually are pulling for a team. Right now, Gemma's fixing to hit the ground with a baby, and it's her first one. And so she's on sabbatical right now, but as soon as she's done weaning her baby, she'll be back on duty with Diamond. And then we're going to make that Diamond and Gemma's place up there. And they'll get to trade in their gold for a trinket at Gemma's Exchange. And there will be a lot of little things with Bible verses. I mean, think of Oriental trading whenever you guys go. I just gave a commercial, didn't I? Think about those things that you provide, it's little trinkets that you want them to think about. Anyway, that's another thing that we're working on right now. And so Diamond's Mine and Gemma's Exchange is not done, but Pony Gulch is pretty well underway right now. And there might be some footage of that if you go to the Facebook page. I can't remember. The train, we just acquired a train because we were using this great big people mover. And we've outgrown it. I mean, you have to do this in shifts of 2 because the people mover can only hold so many people. And so we, amazingly enough, acquired a choo-choo train. And I think there's pictures on our Facebook of that. And if not, go to Skywatch. I'm sure you'll find something there. But in any case, that's kind of what we do. And that has nothing to do with my testimony, but that's okay. Because I'm glad to tell you about all that stuff, because that's really what my testimony has brought me to anyway. It's what we do now. So, I'm not sure what time it is. Okay. I will take you backwards a little bit. Since I started at the back, I'm going to jump to the front. I want to share with you a little bit of my testimony. And I can't tell everything because it's just not enough time in a day to tell stuff. I will give you the highlights, and then we'll come back to, I want to introduce a couple of these other little horses that are so meaningful on the ranch. So the first thing is, amazingly, have you ever heard of prevenient grace? It's like God has given you grace and has spared your life even before you were born. You understand that?
What'd you call it?
Prevenient grace. So it all began with my mom's mom and dad, my grandparents. She was Granny, we called her Granny, was in her mid-40s. And so her hormones had already begun to shift. And she ended up pregnant, went to the doctor, and the doctors back then even said, B, her name was Beatrice, B, this is not good. This is not good at all. You're not in the best of health to start with, and your hormones are going all over. I'm paraphrasing. If this baby is even born, it's most likely going to be not altogether correct. It'll either be mongoloid, Down syndrome, a word that no one likes to use anymore, but in its proper context, retarded. So that is not an unpolitically. That's a real term that was at the time. And so, and that's even if you survived the birth, because this was not a good scenario for my grandma. Well, my granny was a tough little woman. She wasn't very tall, she's tough though. She got up and she says, "Nope, I'm not doing none of it. God blessed me with this baby, I'll have it, or I'll die trying." So they went out, and a few months later, they gave birth to my mom. And sure enough, there were complications. Mom was not very strong when she was born. She was told that she would never make it past 5 months old. So now B and John, because that was my grandpa's name, John, you folks need to just go on out now and get ready. You should kind of go on out and pick a place, because this baby's not going to survive. Well, I'll do it when the time comes. You have to understand that was my granny. I'll do it when the time comes. So she's that little tiger of a woman. And so 5 months passed. Well, hey, guess what? My mama's still kicking. She's still breathing. Okay, well, now we got past the first, and then on and on it went. She'll never live past this age. Then it was 10. Well, she'll never get past 20. She'll never bear children. Blah, blah, blah. She had a kidney dysfunction, and she had some cysts or something. Oh, my mom married and gave birth to 4 children.
Wow.
Boom, boom, boom. Missed one, boom. So she miscarried one, just so you know that. I had 2 boys, 2 brothers were my older, and my baby sister was the 4th. And my mama lived a wonderful life. Well, okay, she had her struggles. She married my dad. That was not good, but I'll tell you about that. But when she passed away, she was 81 years old and was surrounded by her family and all 3 of the 4 that were surviving, plus a bunch of grandkids. So God gave her longevity in spite of what was predicted beforehand. Huh?
The words spoken over her.
I know, right? Not Granny. She said, "Nope, not having it." So, in the meantime, my mom now has had 4 kids, and so I'll go there. She grows up and gets married, and my dad, I love him. He was a very sweet person, very fun, crazy, make you laugh, except for one thing. He would start hitting heavy, hard liquor on the weekends, and it got worse. And then there was things that started happening in the family. There were these arguments and these verbal fights, and the next thing you know, there was physical involvement. And in the meantime, we have 4 kids going along. So before I go there, let me back up and tell you, when I was born with a cleft palate. Now the cleft palate went mostly inwardly instead of exterior, so you can't see it. And so the surgery that they did corrected it. But I still have a slight little nasal. If you listen very carefully, you can hear it. Once you hear it, you'll never not hear it. But for whatever reason, that was a moment where God said, "I'm going to fix that." Now, He could have fixed it. I could have been born without it. But I was born with it. So trust me, I relate to Moses. When I was born, I was 8 years old. 3 months later, they weighed me, and I had only gained 1 pound. So at 3 months old, I'm 9 pounds. That's not normal. They had a hard time finding me because I couldn't suck anything. I couldn't keep, and everything I drank, I was allergic to. So Mom finally found she calls it dextromoltose. Have you heard of that? She said that was the only thing I couldn't do. Goat's milk, cow's milk, any of those. That was it. That was all. And so she put me on that, and I was good in that 24 months of age. I said 18 months last night, but it was actually 24. So I'm 2 years old when I got that all fixed. But I still remember it as if it were yesterday. And so I survived that. My mom survived. I survived. I'm 5 years old now. I'm at the lake with my family, and Dad's out on a boat skiing. Mom's over here doing whatever. I don't know what made me do it, but I stepped out onto, we were getting ready to leave, and I was going to make myself the big informer. I'm going to go tell everybody, time to go, time to go. I ran around to get my brother, and when I did, I stepped off of this little embankment, and there was nothing there. So I went down, and it was deep, and I don't know how to swim. I just remember doing this every time I could, and I remember bubbles just all in my face. And then I remember nothing until I'm sitting on my mom's lap going, and I was sick, just sitting there. And she told me that they had found me floating face down on the water. And one of my cousins, my older cousins, he was a grown man. He just jumped and pulled me out, and they just started, by nature or by instinct or whatever, doing these things with my arms. And after a few minutes, I choked, and then I came out of it. But my mom told me, she said, Nita, I thought you were gone because you had that death grin on your face, where when you're trying to survive and you're just like that. And so that I survived. For whatever reason, I survived that. I remember that was like I had water all in my system. That was tough. So now I'm going to jump back to where I was. My mom and dad, in the meantime, started getting all of this domestic fighting going on, and I'm just going to tell you, it was scary. My dad, at first it was just fists, right, and choking, and bloody eyeballs, and I'm just telling you, this was really, I'm a child. I'm 7 or 8 years old, and I'm seeing my mom all busted up, and Dad always apologizes. I'll always apologize on Monday morning. I'm sorry, it'll never happen. It did. Every weekend it got worse and worse. So the family grew up a little bit, and as we grew, then it escalated. So it was no longer enough to just hurt her with his fists. Now he's got to come after her with guns. So I remember being in, this was like this is not a once-a-year event, people. This was routine. But there's a couple that I remember vividly, and I'll share one of them. I'm standing in my house, and we had an older cousin visiting us, and she was with the kids, and Mom and Dad were out. I don't know where they were because we could hear gunshots. We didn't know where Mom was. But I remember asking my cousin, Janice, is my mom all right? And she looked at me with this frightful look, and she says, I have no idea. You have to understand that my hope at that moment of having anybody try to comfort me was gone. I don't know what I could know. I did not know. Am I going to see my mom the next day? And my mom was the only constant that we had. Mom was a good mom. She cantankerous at times, but good mom. She sacrificed so much for us kids. She made sure we had food on the table. She took the paycheck and made it happen. In spite of our moving constantly, I went to I could probably safely say 15 schools. And I don't think I've listed all of them. But it was a new school every year. And so I was always the new kid, always trying to keep up with this curriculum. And wait, this is different than we... Okay, well, I guess I got to learn it this way now. And it really affected my ability to... I'm telling you, it's amazing what God has done for me in my life, going through all of this, and how much, even in spite of it all, He has gifted me and given me and helped me. Having said all of that, Mom comes in the next morning covered in muddy frog water. If you know what a swamp is, she was covered in frog swamp. And she told me, she said she had gone up into the little pond. There was a little pond, maybe about the size of this room right here. And she had gotten down in one corner where their little cattails grow and hid and was there all night long. You have to understand all those little bugs and critters that are in that pond, and the frogs, and I mean, it's nasty stuff. She came in, and that was one night I remember, and the reason I remember it so vividly is because that was the first time I asked for help or hope, and I was denied. Nope, I have no idea. The adult in the house has no idea if my mom's going to survive, and no one's doing anything to help her. So fast forward again. We're in a different town now. And as usual, this time we're living in the city. That was in the country. This time now we're in the city. And Mom and Dad started in, and it was like they come home from the bar, and And they're doing their thing, and Dad's getting more and more aggressive. And the next thing I know, I look down, and he's got her by the throat, and she's turning blue, and I'm, Dad, stop, Dad. Come on, guys. When I look at what I went through, I'm thinking of all these little kids that come to our camp that you don't know what did they just come home from. And I'm one of the lucky ones because I survived. But having said that, my brother John goes and calls the police. Oh, my dad was so mad at him for that. You embarrassed us in front of our neighbors and all that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That was your concern?
Yeah.
And of course, again, it was roses and chocolates Monday morning. All was good until the next Friday. And on and on and on. Okay, so then it even gets worse. Escalates a little bit worse. And now we're living in another state. It wasn't just a different city, now we're in another state. And and my brother John is a drummer, and my dad was a fantastic guitar fiddle player, and my mom was a bass guitar, and so they had this little family band thing. And they would go different places and play. This is how they ended up in the bar. They would go play music and come home not good. So one particular night, Mom said, okay, we're going to be gone. I need you to spend the night with the neighbors, which was probably from here to that little guest house away. So us kids were over there and come home in the middle of the night. Mom ushers into a closet next to where my sister and I were staying the night. And the lady of the house was, okay, shh, be quiet, don't say a word. Yeah, he's outside right now. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And so I'm getting up, and Mom's like, lay down. And that means, oh, hush, shh, quiet. So I find out later, my dad is sitting outside in their driveway with a shotgun. Right? This is the shotgun. And he sticks his head out the window, and he's like, I want my kids. And the lady of the house says, well, they're sleeping. Charlie, they're sleeping. How about you let them sleep, you come get them tomorrow. I want my kids. And I want them right now. Oh, now, Charlie, they're fine, they're sleeping. He puts the gun like this, and he says, I want my kids. And so she said, okay, just give me a minute. She comes back and says, to my mom, he's got a gun pointing at me. She says, well, okay, he's not going to hurt the kids. Let them go, and they'll be fine. So the kids come out. We get in the car, and now we're driving into town because we're looking for Mom. Because her and my brother John have escaped somewhere. We don't know where. Because us kids woke up in the middle of the night, and all we know is Mom and John are gone. This is my older brother now. This is how it escalated. Now my brother's involved. I want to know why? Because he defended her honor. Dad did not like it that John took up for my mom. Like when he called the police, that was his first mistake. This was his second mistake. So now Mom and John are both on the run, and us kids don't know where they're at. And we're driving in a car all over the road, 7 miles into town, 7 miles back. We get home, and we're standing, and the way the house was, there's the kitchen here, and then there was a little side utility room, and then there was a door that goes out under a carport, and so forth. And so my dad says to my other next in line brother, said, I heard a noise out there. And he's got his gun, standing there with his gun. He said, I heard a noise out there. And it's probably just a cat or something. No, it might be your mom. It might be your mom. Go out and see who's out there. So my brother goes out the door. And then I kid you not, don't know why Dad did these things, but he turned and pointed the gun at that door, like this, and he said, I'm going to shoot the next person that comes through that door. Oh. Well, you know that my brother was going to come right back in. I said, Dad, he's coming right back. You can't do this. Because I knew that if that were to happen, then we're all done for. It's going to be one of those stories that you read where the guy goes cuckoo and kills everybody. Yeah. Because this is now about 12 years old by now. So I've grown up with this, and I'm learning the pattern. And I'm seeing that it's getting worse and worse. Even though I don't realize I'm learning it, I just sense it. Anyway, so I talked him into going over and sitting on the couch for a minute. And he did. And then I took his gun and I laid it down. I lay down and rest, Dad. Take it easy. We'll take care of things. And he was tired. He laid down. Brother came back in. Mom and John I found out the next day because Dad had come and gotten us in the middle of the whole fight. He had been out there shooting at my mom and John, and it was at a logging mill, and there were a bunch of logs, and I don't know if you know how logs are stacked, but never hide in them. Never go near them. Because if you dig one, it's like toast. That's where they hid. It was the only place they had to hide. They were hidden in the middle of all those big stacks of logs. But he had shot a hole in the car, but because he had just barely missed my brother. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on here. This is very scary. And then there is one more time, and then I'll move on because I think this will give you the clear picture. There was one time when, and this happened just prior to the last story I told you. My sister and I would always, we shared a room, and we lived in one house where we didn't have a back door lock. So my mom and dad would take a big butcher knife and they'd shove it, crying in a bucket. They would shove it in the door trim. And you probably have heard that, to make it kind of as a lock. So one night Mom came in and they started this whole thing, and Mom had grabbed that knife out, and this was one night she was gonna fight back. And so she started fighting back, and he comes into our, I don't know whatever happened to her after that, but he comes into my room, into my sister and I's room, and he's just covered in blood all over his arm, where Mom was just like trying to defend herself. Then he blames her. My mom, your mom's trying to kill me. I gotta stay in here so that she won't hurt me. I said, okay, lay down and go to sleep. And he did. Thankfully, he did. After that, my sister and I started collecting everything that we could find that was sharp. Knives, pencils, screwdrivers, anything that we could find, hammers, anything that they could hurt themselves or someone, we would hide them. They would go out and we'd hide everything. And then they would come back and we would put it all back, so they would never know we were doing this. But that was the childhood that I grew up. Now, we had some good moments, so it was not all ugly. I just want you to know that when you live with that kind of an environment and it's very consistent and you don't know if somebody's going to live tomorrow, to see tomorrow, and it may be you, you don't know. You don't know anything. What you do know is you can't trust nothing. Because the very things in your life that should be your protector is now your aggressor. After everybody in your life. So that puts a lot of fear in your life, and it will affect you for the rest of your life. So that's why these little kids, I want to give you I'm pigtrailing big time, guys. So that was my life as a child. I'm going to jump forward. Because I'm not sure where we're going with it, but I'm going to jump forward. Now we're living in Missouri. There's a lot of water under the bridge. Lots of water that some of it is in the book. But this part is not. I mean, what I just told you is not in there. And again, the reason I did not want to put that in the book is because I really want this book to be inspirational. I didn't want to drag it down with all this heartache. But I'm standing in our house had just burnt down. And I'm standing in the yard. And in the house, what's left of it. And I'm digging through whatever I can find. Did anything survive? And I'm digging through all the charcoal, and it stinks, and it's still kind of moist and smelly because of the fire thing. And I'm bent over like this, digging with a stick, when all of a sudden I hear a school bus of children screaming. Now, I can't scream as loud as what I heard because I would blow your ears out. So I'll just a little bit scream and you'll get the idea. They were screaming, help! Somebody help us! Will someone please help? Help! And it wasn't just one voice, it was numerous simultaneously, blasting like a... First I thought it was a bunch of kids coming home from a ball game. But then when I listened, I know it was definite calls of help. And I looked and I expected to see a school bus and nothing was there. Because I live not too far off the main road. Nothing. I went, wow, that was kind of weird. So I thought, oh, okay, that was kind of weird. I went back to digging in the rubble, not thinking much about it, and I'm not kidding you because this is documented with Penny. And I'm glad I did that. But about 10 minutes later, it happened again. Equally as loud and eerie. Screams for help. Help! Help! Will someone help us? And I documented that because Penny and I played, in order for me to find meaning in it, Penny and I played a little bit of an email game for a couple of days, and we documented what happened. So then, when we ran our first kids camp, the bus pulls in, and these little kids begin to get off the bus. Now, I did not hear any physical screams, but I could see it in their faces, screaming, "Help me, please, somebody help me. Will someone help me?" And these little kids, that was our first camp. It happens every year. I still see it. I still see it in the kids. They get off. And Kate's shaking her head. Kat's seen it. Allie, they've all seen it. And I know that Peggy and I know that Tammy has seen it. These kids, they get off with all this fear, but by the end of the week, it's not going to be finished. God has begun a good work, and that He's going to finish it. Anyway, so that's a moment there. I don't know where to go with it now. Well, let's see. I will take it one more step because I've got to give you the happy ending to a couple of things. Oh, actually, I almost died like 3 more times after that. Just so you know, they were serious deaths. Allie was there because she was about 13 or 14 at the time. And what had happened is I had really had some troubles with my ovaries. And I would get these cysts that would just double me over in pain, and I never thought nothing of it. So one time I got this one, and it would not stop hurting. So I was popping Tylenol every 4 hours, and about 6 weeks later, I thought, well, I probably should. My husband kept saying, "You need to go see a doctor." He kept saying, "Get yourself, well, I'm busy, I've got a thing, I'm doing stuff." Nope, go see a doctor. Finally, he talked me into it, and I went. Doctor says, "You need to be at the hospital right now. Drop everything you're doing and go right now." "No, I got a Christmas program, and we're going to do the thing on the weekend, and I got to be there. I have to direct this. Nope, you need to be there." Then the doctor says, "Don't take no more Tylenol. And if the pain gets worse, call me." Of course, he knew that was going to happen. The same night, he was at his son's rehearsal dinner for his wedding that was going to happen the next day. The doctor. But when he saw me, he knew this had to happen. So that it happened. When they got inside there, they found out it was not my ovary. It was my appendix. And it had been spilling poison into my system for weeks. So they had to do a lot of cleanup. And they had to remove some stuff. And it was a very painful surgery for lots of months afterwards. But the doctor told my husband, "I'm just not sure." But you realize that the gangrene had set in. And I mean, it was a real mess. I should have died. When I went in, they were going to, they checked my blood count to make sure, to see if I needed blood. I almost did, yeah. They took my blood sample, but this is where God's grace kept it. He said, "Nope, not yet." Anyway, they took my blood, and I was only at a count of 8. And that is pretty low. I mean, sometimes you die and you're still at a 9. So, doctor, he's like, "Do you have any idea why?" "No, I have no idea." This was pre-operation. Afterwards, he told me, he said, "You're one sick puppy." I was in the hospital for 6 days, and on the 7th day, the nurse would come in every day to check to see if there was any sounds, because my insides had pretty much gave up. And every day she would come in and listen. "Okay, well, I'll be back soon." Next day. "Okay, then." So finally, on the 6th day, she goes, "Oh, I hear bubbles." And so there was rumbling in there. And again, it was not an easy recovery, but I did recover. 2 years later, a similar thing happened where, now this time it was my ovaries. And I had big cysts on them all over the place. I was heavily monthly, and for the sake of graphics, I'll leave it there. So when I went in to, because I went to see the doctor again, he said, "Okay, now we have to do this. We should have done it 2 years ago, but now we're going to have to do this." And so we went in, and he did it. And at the time, that he says, "Go down and have the nurse, pull some of your blood for your surgery." And I did. And she comes back out pale as a ghost, and she goes, "I can't take your blood." And I go, "Well, why not?" She says, "You don't have any." And I says, "Well, what's my blood count?" She said, "You're at a 7.
Wow.
And I said, I just kind of sat there and laughed and said, Lord, this has got to be you keeping me alive. I'm serious. So my children stepped in, and so I have their blood in me. Donna was a little bit young, but Joe and Donna,
Let me, but I did try.
she did, yes. Joe and Allie were young enough, and they allowed them. So I've got Joe and Allie's blood. That saved my life through there. But so that's the other 2 times. And then there was one more time when I fell off of a 6-foot deck onto a cement floor, and a big giant log came crashing down after me and missed my head just by a few feet. But I broke my foot, and I still have a plate in my foot. But anyway, so for whatever reason, God has spared me. Here I am. Thank you. Thank you. I got to grow up and see my grandones, and I get to do this, and I get to scratch ponies, and God has just been so graceful. In the meantime, as a child also growing up, I know you guys know about the accident because that is in the book, and I did lose my baby sister, and her and I, we were best buddies, and I know if she had grown up, she would have had a little girl and named it after me, but that's okay because Catherine took care of that. She named one of her and Joe named their little girl after me. So my husband and I got married, and of course we started having kids too. Not good. Our first year of marriage was we had one thing that we agreed on. I hate you, and you hate me. That's a good, we agree. At least we got something that we can agree on, because the rest of it was just not good.
How'd you agree right there?
Well, here's the funny thing about that. We were actually boyfriend and girlfriend when we were teenagers. And so we just thought, we're going to do this thing. Not good. So it ended up that we didn't like each other very much, and a lot of it was because we just were in sin. We were just selfish. We expected each other to cater to the other one. He wanted a slave, and I wasn't going to do it. And, there was a lot of selfish immaturity going on. But what intervened, and here's what saved it, is that one day I was watching TV, and I tuned into a Billy Graham crusade of all things. Wow. Yeah, right? And he's telling the people, and he turns to the camera with those eyes. You don't have to be here in the presence. You can do this right now in the privacy of your home. Get on your knees and pray to God and ask Jesus to come into your heart. Billy Graham. Yes. And I had been starving and thirsty for something. I'm not shelling this part too. So right then and there, I got down on my knees and I prayed the sinner's prayer. And I got up and I went, okay, I did that. So I didn't have any electrical things. There wasn't any sobbing, oh, my life has changed. It was not. I just did that, and I got up and I said, okay, God, now what? I did that. Over a period of a few months, my husband and I, a nutshell story, ended up in a little Pentecostal church in Amity Assembly. And we started going there, and there was an older couple, and you heard someone refer to them earlier, Grandma and Grandpa Fuller. They were not our grandparents. Not physically, not biologically, but they took us in like grandparents. They adopted us. They saw us through the birth of, because this was before Donna was born. I had already had Allie, but then whenever I got pregnant with Joe, they were there whenever that happened. Just like my other, that was who was there. And just saying, these people in this church, God put us there for the same reason these kids comes to these camps. Because I'm an adult, I've got a child, and now I've got another one. I need help. I need salvation. I need rescue. We need help. And so we started this church, and these people mentored us, and that made the difference in our life because we started praying a new prayer. And it really blessed my heart when I heard him pray, Lord, make me a better man. That changed my life. That made me cry. That changed my life. Because I thought, what? Because I've never heard that. The only dad I ever knew was going to punch me in the face. In fact, to be truthful with you, I half expected to get beat up. And he never hit me. There was one time we were goofing around and I said, slap me. He went, boom, and he did accidentally hit me. But it was an accident. Oh, I'm so sorry. But he never purposefully ever laid a finger on me and never has. He has treated me like a queen. Okay, those first few years were kind of shaky. But then when he got salvation, he got God, and God, his spirit got in him, he changed. And that changed me because I couldn't no longer be selfish to a guy who's not selfish. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that. So God got a hold of both of us. Now, I'm not saying it was all roses because we had our days, it was ups and downs because this is what marriage does. You have to work at it. It is not an automatic thing. But I can tell you, man, I'm older now, and we are best friends. I'm just saying, we love hanging out. I've learned to love Super Bowl tomorrow. We're going to win, right, Chiefs? Just saying. So, that's that. So I wanted you to know that there's the happy ending of that. One last thing, because I told you I would hate to cheat you out of hearing about a couple of the other little critters on the ranch. So Tink went to Missouri to retire. And so my husband and I, oh my gosh, I finally get to have a horse. I bought a couple big ones, and that ended disastrous because I ended up getting hurt. And then it scared me to death because I kept thinking that one of my kids is going to get hurt. It laid me up for 6 months, and I says, no, I'm not doing this. We're going to get rid of the big ones. In the meantime, I had bought this little bitty cutesy little horsey as a novelty for the grandkids. And we called her the old mama because she was pregnant when we bought her, and she had this cute little baby. And then so I thought, okay, I can do little bitty horses. So we went and bought a couple more and a couple more. I ended up with Tink, and when I bought her, I had asked the cowboy that was there to sell her, tell me about this little set of horses. It was a set of two, Tink and Tonk. Her name was not Tink. Her name was Snip or something to that effect. But I wanted the names to match because I'm salt and pepper, right? And so I am. It has to be matching. So I named her Tink. First I named her Tinkerbell, but then it just didn't fit her. Tink didn't fit her, but Tink. That's because that's who she is. But anyway, brought them home, and now I'm out in the yard. We're going to play them one day. And I've noticed that Tink, when I brought her home, she did not want to get this far away from Tonka. Would not get anywhere. She wherever he was, she was right there. And granted, I mean, this was back when I didn't know a whole lot, and I still am learning leaps and bounds. So I haven't learned it all. But she would not get no further than this away from the other her teammate. So I brought him. I brought him out to work with him one day, and I tied Tink to a post and I started to brush her down. And I have never seen a horse do this, and it's hard to describe. But if I could describe, the best I can do would be every muscle in her body was quivering with fear. And her little eyes were like, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? I'm telling you, they're expressive, and I'm thinking, that's kind of weird. It's not what the guy told me. I'm not sure what's going on here. Well, he had given me his phone number in case I had any issues. I would like to call you. So he gave me the phone number. I go into the house, and I said, I couldn't harness her because she was already broke to pull a cart. Trained to pull a cart. I like that word better, trained. You don't break them, you train them. So, and there is a difference, trust me, I learned that real. But anyway, I call him, and I said, hey, just curious, I'm having a little bit of difficulties with Tink. Can you help me understand so I can do a better job? This is what she's doing. And I'm having a really hard time catching her, by the way, because you told me that she was easy to catch. Oh, she's easy to catch. All you got to do is get a bucket, go into a stall, and then lock the stall behind you, and then slip a rope around her neck, and if she doesn't let you do it, you just beat her. Oh! That was what he told me, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm waiting for the giggle.
Yeah.
And there's no giggle. I said, you beat her? Oh, yeah, you beat her. Okay, then, thank you. I already know what I need to do. I hung up, never talked to the guy again. I went back out, and I told my husband, what am I going to do with the horse I can't touch? I was kind of angry because I had been lied to. This poor horse had issues. I wanted to just go play ponies. But I had now a problem on my hands. What am I going to do? Well, let's take the other one and play with him and see if she calms down. So that was his psychology, and we did that, and it seemed to help a little bit. But in the meantime, I started, doing some research. Okay, I shouldn't throw her out because she has issues. What can I do to fix it? So I started watching different personalities that would help me. And I remember the first time one of them says, in order to catch them, you have to kind of chase them, because this is what they do to each other. They have to. It's a game that we play. It's a game. It's real. So I went out and I had the halter, and he said, you toss the halter at the back of her hip, and you keep her moving forward until she stops, and then try to approach. If she does not let you approach, you don't hurt her, you don't beat her. Just toss it at her hip again. Just get her moving. Change the other direction. Just don't work. Don't be nervous. Don't be, ram in, and just very gently and very calmly. So I did that, and I caught her. Finally, she stopped, and I put the halter on, and she let me catch her without having to do weird things. And so I ran in the house, and I said, I did it, I whispered. And so my husband was so proud because I caught Tink without an issue. So I took Tink, and then it made me realize that this poor little horse just needed help. So in the meantime, old Mama Horse had her baby. Cameo was born, and Cameo was the opposite. I mean, she couldn't get enough of me scratching on her, and she would follow me like a puppy and play with me. I had never had a horse follow and play with me, ever. And she would follow, and I'd turn around, and she'd stick her nose up, and I would scratch on her, scratch. And then Tink, in the distance, would stand there, and with her both eyes, not one eye, and there's another lesson, one eye, two eye, both eyes, watched me. And every time I would approach her, she would turn and walk away. But the curiosity, she did not understand why this little horse got all the lovey, scratchies, because that's not something she had ever experienced. And she wasn't about to come over and let me, she just wasn't there yet. So it made me think. I looked at Tink, and she had the saddest look on her face. Like, why does that little baby get all the loving? I'm telling you, these horses have expressions, and this is where God began to talk to me through the horses. Because I ran in a couple of days, I'm a whisperer. I went to Missouri to build the ranch, right, to do the thing. I was going to be the horse whisperer. We were going to call it saddle horn minis. Saddle horn horses, saddle horn something, because, horn. Yeah, right, that was clever. I was so clever. And then when Tink stared at me, and I really looked at her and saw her eye contact. I said, Tink, what has happened to you? Why won't you let me love you? And God said, why won't you let me love you?
Wow.
And I went, what? What just happened? And he said, because God speaks to us on our level. He knows how to speak. I've had lots of people talk to me. I knew the gospel. They told me scriptures. They prayed over me and laid hands on me. But took that little bitty horse for God to get through for the first time and said, why won't you let me love you the way you love her? And you know what? It was not easy even still, because I still hadn't learned how to love. I mean, I love, but trust is a different kind of love. You know what I mean? I trust my kids. If I gave birth to it, I trust it. If they gave birth to it, I trust it. If they married it, I trust it. But other than that, hard nut to crack right here, and I'm not kidding. But I'm getting better. And it's because God is showing me that I don't have to live there no more. I don't gotta live there no more. He's giving me this moment to move forward. Anyway, and that is what caused me to really take interest in Tink, because I could not allow her not to be loved no more. Because I kind of wanted the same thing. I wanted that same thing, but Tink taught me. So it was a long time. It took me a long time. And I finally got to where she would let me lift up her feet. I could harness her now. And she was finding out I'm not going to beat on her. Now, Tink's not my best back pocket pony, and she never will be, because she will always remember the days when the cowboy beat her with a rope and twisted her ears off when they needed to do stuff to her. I'm telling you, you need the old cowboy trick where they twist the ears. I'm sorry, that's not good. I don't care who you're listening to me, you don't like that. I don't care. This is one time I can say, I don't care if you like it. Don't twist your horse's ears. Don't do that. That's not helpful. And so she had had her ears twisted so many times she did not like no one to touch her head. Huh? Can't what? Twist her head? I mean, touch her hair? So, but let me tell you how far she's come, though. She still does one of these, but that's not like it was. Man, she used to do it so wildly, she would bump her head and get her nose bloody and beat herself up trying to get away from you. But now, one day I was in the barn. I'm going to tell you 3 really quick stories about her just to show you how far she's come. I was in the barn one day, and I wanted to scratch her right here. I put my hand on her head, and she did this. I just continued. Oh, tink. And I had to use the word "aw" now. I couldn't say easy, because that was the next thing that happens. She gets beat. Because the cowboy is easy, easy. Nope, we don't do easy. We don't say easy. We say "aw now." "Aw now, tink." Like, come on. Get off your own rocker. And I started doing this to her head. And I kid you not, doing this. And every time she would stop, I would just scratch. And then she would not know whether to trust it. She would, flinch. When she gets done flinching, I put my hand back on her head, continue scratching. And it was so funny because after a little while of doing this, she got tired of doing this and realized, oh wait, if I stand still, it feels good. She got it. She figured it out. I'm telling you, I don't know how many times I have flinched when I stop and long enough and the Lord just massaging my head, Not the nonsense. And so her head just drooped down, her little bottom lip goes back down. So now she still is a little bit flinchy. But if you do this a couple times, then she has to remember, because she has a muscle memory that says, if you touch my head, it's going to hurt. So like if you've been hurt really bad, it may not go away really fast. Even though you can start to trust again, you're still going to flinch once in a while. Because the muscle memory is going to cause that to happen. Anyway, another little story about Tink is I'm standing in a field one day and they had eaten. I have three pieces to this bottom field, and they had eaten. There was about 15 of the little horses there at the time, and they had eaten everything that was in these 2 pastures, and I was ready to open up that bottom field. And I went out there, and I'm like, la, 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 just moseying along. Tink is watching. Tink watches every move I make. Don't ask me, she just that's the funniest little 2-legged critter I ever seen. So I walk out to the gate, and she's watching me, and I open the gate wide open. I mean, it's just me and that grass. And Tink walks out there, creeps out there, and she's like, what are you up to? And I'm standing there, and she gets about as far as from me till Laura. And she's staring at me, right? Because Tink, we've got a friendship here. It's kind of weird, but we're learning it. And she's looking at me, and I said, you want the grass? You got to get past me. I ain't moving. Took another step off to the side. I said, nope, not going to get past me. You have to walk past me to get to the grass. I'm not moving. So she did, man. She walked right up here just like that, looking at me the whole time. And as soon as she got past me, that little girl bolted. And want to know what happened? When she did, she became the leader of the pack. Every horse in the barnyard was like, wait, what? And they were running, and I'm telling you, they ran around for like 5 minutes, and Tink leading the way. Her little tail in the, and she's kind of frumpy. I mean, she's a little bit one of those like short legs and long body and a little bit of a long nose. She's kind of cute. But she is my very best driving pony. She is the smoothest little, and she's not afraid of nothing. You put her on the cart, then her fears, she transcends all that to you. She just says, okay, if you got me here, you're the boss. Anyway, and so she ran in that field, and the Lord spoke to me again and said, see, if I can take the one that's the most afraid and put her leader of the pack, how come I can't do that with you? I said, no, Lord. And so I went home, and I told my husband about it. And it was like the Lord was using this horse to talk to me. He was using the horse. He was talking to me through her, through our relationship that we were building. And then here's the ultimate one. And this is where I knew Tink really, really learned to trust me. And again, she's not going to be my best back pocket pony, because she has that, she will always have that, I don't really want to do this today. If I catch her, she'll wait, she'll kind of evaluate, what are we doing? Am I going to drive? No. Then she calms right down. But anyway, I'm sorry, I just thought of one more that I have to tell. So I'm going to go there first and I'll come back to the last one. I took Tink on one of our visits one time. And you have to understand, Tink's a driving horse. She is not a therapy animal. Although she's very therapeutic and she would never hurt anybody. So that was why I took her. I thought it'd be good for her to get out of the barnyard, experience something different. So I've got Tink on lead and we're walking down. And you have to understand that these little therapy horses, they walk like, you know, because they've learned how to walk gently, because that's how we train them. But Tink, when she got out of the trailer and we started to walk, she's all like, boom, boom, boom. And I kept having to pull her back, Tink, walk, walk. She would walk for a minute, and I'm boom, boom, boom. And you want to know what it was? I figured it out. Because after a little while, she stopped doing it. She was so accustomed to that anytime anybody touched her, it's time to work. Now I gotta pull something. I gotta pull my weight. They got this big old thing strapped down to me and I gotta pull. So she was in pull mode because that's all she had ever known. So when we started using her for other things, now Tink knows how to walk real sweet. And she's adorable. One more, and this is the ultimate, is Tink. Oh my gosh, this is such kind of a hilarious story. Sorta. So I had 8 little mares out in the field, and my little stallion gets out. And I'm thinking, okay, this isn't good, because I did not want 8 babies the next year. So I go out there and I grab Cowboy because Cowboy's a little stallion, but he's a sweetheart. You just grab him by the hair and he'll follow you anywhere. So we pulled him in, and okay, now I got to have my vet come out and do a vet check. Well, when I went out there to get him, there were 7 of these 8 little mares here, and Tink was way over yonder. So I thought, okay, she's good. Well, no, wasn't good. I had all 7 of them checked, and none of them were pregnant. But about 10 months later, because the gestation is 11 months, my husband and I are driving on a putt-putt. Tink's out there, and he's looking at Tink, and he says, because my husband, he amazes me sometimes what he sees. Oh, you know what? Her belly's moving all around. I know, she's fat, and she was. And she's got these little love handles right here, too, by the way. She's got extra little love handles right here. This is why when her belly moves, I'm like, nah, she's just fat. She's been out on the grass all the time. No, I'm seeing something definite here. You might want to get out and take a closer look. Okay, so to appease him, I got out and, got as close to her as she would let me get. I got down on my knees and I'm observing. No, Tink. Sure enough, I call my veterinarian and she comes out and she, we're good. She's gonna be doing this. So what you also need to understand, if you don't already know that, is fescue grass is deadly to a female horse that's pregnant. It will kill the baby and it will make the milk not come in. The birth bag there's several things that can happen. So you have to pull them off fescue about 3 months before they foal. And Tink, this was her 10th month. I called my veterinarian and I said, hey, I think I have a problem. And she goes, well, we have a medication that may help. Because this is not the first time this has happened. So we pulled her in, we tried the medication, kept her on it. I come in one night, and I was down there every night, 2 or 3 times a night, checking in on Tink. I go in one night, and there she's standing there, like a little guardian. And her baby's right here. It's not alive. He did not survive. It was a little boy, and he was a very cute little critter. But she's just standing there, and she's looking at me when I come in. Like, look here, right? I walked over, and I immediately it was not alive. And I sat down, because I had a bale of hay in her stall. I sat down on the bale of hay and started to cry because I couldn't fix this. And so Tink, she's looking at me really funny. After a little while, she sees this baby's not going to move. So she's just staring a hole in me. I kid you not. She left her little baby and she came over this close to me and looked me in the eye like, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do about this? You're my God. You're the one who like takes care of me. And in her world, I'm her God, right?
Yes.
So she's asking me. This is why I know she trusted me, because she came that close to me within range. What are you going to do? Now that was what she was asking with her face. And I looked at her and said, Tink, I can't do anything. It's too late. She went back over and stood over, guardian over him. Did not move for 2 days. Finally, the second day, I walked in and I said, Tink, and I opened up her stall. Now this is true life. I said, you can't be here no more. You got to give it up. The baby's not going to come around. You got to move on. And she got up and I opened up her door and then I stepped out of her stall and I stood there and looked at her. And I took 2 steps and here she came. Right here. And she followed me right there until I got to the gate. And I opened up the gate and I let her go because there was an upper hill. And I opened up the gate and she went up there about, from here to the back end of that wall, and she turned around and looked at me. Again, contemplatingly, and paused, and she is as to say, I don't like this, but I get it. Yeah. So she put her head down and she started grazing. And Tink and I have other stories to tell because we're still developing our friendship and our relationship, but she has changed my life. That's Tink. God used Tink to teach me a lot more. But anyway, she's the one who inspired the name of the ranch, because the first time I looked at her and I saw Cameo was scratching, and the first time that God said, why won't you let me love you? I thought, well, these horses talk more to me than I do them. They whisper to me. That's why I call it Whispering Ponies, and it was because of Tink. Really quickly, and I can boom through these, but you got to hear it. We have a little horse named Little Red, and Little Red's a sweetheart. He loves baby horses. He just loves them. Every time there's a baby born, he's got to go nose to nose and, honey, who are you? And it's, wow, you're so cute. And so, well, it didn't work out so well one day. He went to do the nose to nose thing with a mare that I had just had, and she's no longer there because her temperament was not at all suited. But she did have a baby while she was there in Little Red. I don't know what happened because I didn't see it, but all I know is that I walked out to do something, and when I came back, Little Red is in a stall and his head's this big.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh no, and he's just standing there with his head down, and I'm like, Little Red, and he didn't respond. Just my buddy, right? So I walked in and he wouldn't move. And he had gotten his head, this is what I had figured out. He got his head, stuck his head in all the way into the stall to nose the baby because he was trying to reach, and she probably got on him. And when he came back, it caught there are pressure points right here, and it caught those points on both sides of the ears and caused the lower jaw to just go limp. And so he couldn't eat anything. I told my other son-in-law, I said, you need to go out and dig a hole because Little Red's not going to make it. And then I had a friend of mine said, well, you know what, if you're that sure, you may as well just stick him in a field and give him some time to stretch. Put him in a field, and I went back out, and 3 hours later I went out to check how's Little Red doing. He was by himself. I stuck my hand out and said, Little Red! He come running to me. And it made me realize that Little Red was not ready to die yet. So we brought him in, and I immediately started making him chigger soup. I started mixing chigger soup, squishy enough that he could slurp it. So he had chigger slurpees for like...
Chigger being the name of that horse from earlier.
Yes.
Not the bug.
No. I had explained that chigger soup is and then I would refer to it later. Anyway, so yeah, chigger soup was the stuff that we would feed chigger. Anyway, so he started slurping on that, and it took him a full year to recover. And I can't get in, So, true life, this little horse, he was so skinny, if somebody would have visited my ranch, they would have turned me in for horse abuse. But it was, this little guy was just on his last, because he had lost so much weight within just a few days. Anyway, so once he started kind of getting weight on him again, once he was fully, back to normal, my veterinarian gave him a good clean bill of health teeth is all intact, his mouth is working, and all the nerves and stuff have now started to, they're healed and they're back to normal. Started putting him on a little cart. And then, now he drives a cart. And so, Little Red, I remember the day that he first pulled the cart for the first time. We had gone out to dinner for some Skywatch thing or something, and Nita Lee was sitting next to me, and her and I were like, "Can you believe it, Little Red? Can you believe that?" So her and I started singing this song, and I don't remember the tune, but it goes, "Little Red almost dead. Now he's not, he's hot to trot. Bless his heart. He now pulls cart." And there was one more line, no, keep to myself. No, then she calls him stinky little fart or something. Anyway, Little Red survived all that, and I'll tell you that he still loves babies. He still is the first one to say welcome to the ranch when the babies are born, and he's the greatest little driving pony. The kids love him, and they love on him. And so there's a little horse that almost died and did not, but he had the will to survive. He taught me that don't give up. Don't give up. You're not the one that gets to say it. They will tell you when it's ready. Chigger told me she was done. Little Red also told me I'm not. So don't give up. Don't give up on those around you when you think they're gone or dead or something's wrong. Keep praying. Keep believing. Keep it up. God will take care of the timing. Do your job. Okay, Rebel. Okay, Rebel. I have to tell you about Rebel. So Rebel was a yearling, and he and I didn't get along very well. So, because I own the ranch, and he's not doing what I want him to do, and he's actually kind of an ornery stinker, turning his butt towards me, which is disrespectful, kicking out at me. It is. It's a form of dis. Yeah. So he would do that to try to bite me. He was acting pretty not nice, and this is not a suitable animal for the ranch. It's just you can't stay. And so one day, Donna's husband James, he started coming, kind of helping me. This was before I had any help. And James started volunteering to help. And he came in one day, he goes, because I had pulled Rebel out of the field. And I said, he says, "Who's this?" I said, "That's Rebel." And he says, "Well, can I work with him? What are you going to do with him?" I said, "I'm probably going to sell him. He's ornery." And he says, he said, "What's his name?" And I said, I thought for a minute. And I said, "Well, I can't call him Satan. I can't have a Lucifer on the ranch." So, he's such a rebel. I don't know. And that was his name. Okay, Rebel. That's his name, because that's what he... Yeah. Okay, James worked with Rebel. And in 3 days, believe it or not, had Rebel jumping in and out. And if you have to understand, trailers are scary to a horse. It's a big, giant mouth. It's dark inside. Yeah, they can't see. And there's no ramp. This horse, you just jump this high to get in. Rebel was in and out. In, on command, out. In. And I'm like, "What have you done?" "Oh, I'm just playing with him." And so, but I found out that James has a real natural knack for these little critters, and they love him. Anyway, James continued to work with Rebel, and now Rebel is part of our ranch. And he is actually one of my primary cart animals. And the kids love him because he's got these icy blue eyes, and he's black with this white blaze. So then a couple of years ago, I had the counselors come through, and I have on the dorm rooms, every room has a name of one of the horses. And so this girl I said, "What room are you in?" And she goes, and I go, why are you being so quiet about it? She goes, "I don't want these kids to identify with that name." And I went, no, you don't understand the idea behind Rebel. He's here on the ranch. I tell her the story, but she's not impressed. Because all she's thinking about, she don't want her kids to become Rebel. So we changed the name on the door, and now his name is Rebel the Redeemed. Rebel has a new name on the ranch, written down in glory. And I'll tell you something. I tell this story to the kids when they come and visit the ranch. And I even tell them he was called Rebel because that was what he was. But he is now Rebel the Redeemed. And I even tell the counselors the story, and I also charge them. So when you're working with someone that you're kind of not good with, find another mentor. Just because you've been assigned this person, maybe that's not the right connection. So with Rebel, I was not the right connection. I did not understand him. I did not have patience for that nonsense. James didn't care. He just went in there and did the job, that. So, Rebel the Redeemed. Oh my gosh. I'll try to, I'm almost done. Truffle. I have to tell you about Truffle. Now Truffle is Kate's little horse, and I didn't give it to her. You think that I have all these animals and I just give them out, but with her not. She's wanted a horse, and I said, okay, I'll tell you, make you a deal. If you'll take Truffle and train her how to drive a cart, I will give her to you. Okay, so she did. Every day during the summer, this girl would come and I'm so sorry I committed to that. She'd drag me on every day. Oh my gosh. Grandma, come on, let's go get Truffle. Let's go get Okay. Oh, and it's sweltering hot and we have to go uphill. Anyway, there's so much more I could tell you about Truffle. But the main reason that I even wanted to bring her up was because Kate took this little animal and made her an amazing part of our ranch. She is now the most gentle, kind, and loving. She has that spirit of Chigger. She's actually the only one that comes close to Chigger in heart. And spirit is Truffle. And so here's a funny little story about Truffle, see, because Mama and Daddy of Truffle are both registered animals, right? They are qualified. They have papers. They're valuable because the paper said so. And they have pedigree that goes back to other important people and animals. Truffle did not get papers because the lady that I bought Truffle from did not keep her word to me. And she did not get papers. I won't go into the story because it would take another long time to tell. Bottom line is, Truffle did not get her papers. Now, I will tell you, I don't know how many people in my life that have dropped out of trying to serve ministry because they could not get a paper. They could not get approval or man's paper. But let me tell you why that's so sad. It's because Truffle is what is she? What is her value? She's priceless. You can't buy her from me. I know where she came from, but she's priceless. No go away, nowhere. But how many people that I know of in ministry have dropped out because they didn't feel qualified? They did not feel that paper, they didn't have that paper that says, I earned my deal. I know a lot of people that never got papers and they are just Truffle or a Chigger or whatever. But I've always wanted to make sure that we tell that story for Truffle because she don't have no papers, but she is valuable, very priceless. 3 more, and I'll go really fast. Spot, pretty much his duty on the ranch is to keep Callie happy, and that's his duty, and that's her friend. Callie is the granny pony. She's my little granny pony. She's probably okay. So like some horses will age quicker than others, like people do. You might be a young 60, you might be an old 60. So Callie is pretty old, but she's also aging older. But that girl will put up with anything. We had a special needs group come through Ark of the Ozarks a while back. They brought some of their handicapped people out there, and there's one that gets very brutal with a brush. Just was hammering on her. Mm-hmm. And anyway, Callie just stood there and took it. So her and Callie, and Callie has stood the test of time. I wanted to show you these 2 pennies right here. Remember the other night when I said I got old? Well, I got old. We're all going to get old. But here's what Callie has taught me. See these 2 pennies? There's a brand new penny right here. And this is an old wheatback. If one of these could talk, which one would have stories to tell? This one has stood the test of time. This one is still around. This one is put in a special place and was given to me by my son, who has collected wheatbacks for me all of his life, and he always says, who's the most faithful? And I know he's got me another wheatback. Anyway, so Callie's like a little wheatback penny. She has not lost her value. She's only more cherished than ever, and she's one of our very close to Truffle. And so I've already mentioned Spot. Diamond is a little white horse, and he is he's got some physical issues. He's kind of temperamental. He gets runny about, we call it. And he has like sore eyes, and so we work with him on it, but a lot of that's allergies. But I'll tell you something. What I love about him is if I were to tell you go out and bring me Diamond, I wouldn't even have to describe him. Want to know why? Because he would be the first one to greet you. He will even run off other ones. He is your little back pocket pony. And it's because he loves to love. And that's how come I know Diamond, is because that's how you would know him. You would know him by his love. Now, aren't we supposed to be like that? Aren't they supposed to know us by our love?
Yeah.
I like Diamond. He teaches me. And he's also a girl's best friend. One more. Allie, I'm sorry. One more. Buttercup. Now, Buttercup is just a broodmare. She's just a broodmare. She's just a little broodmare. So she's giving me babies is what she does. Want to know something really fun about her, though? She has given me 7 babies, and one more going to hit the ground here pretty soon. And every single one of her babies is a productive part of the ranch, including Diamond, I just talked about. And anyway, I love her because as a broodmare, she helps do half the job. So if you get a good little mama, they help you raise up good babies. So just if you're a good little mama and that's your claim to fame, own it. Buttercup does. I am sorry that I took extra time. I pig-trailed hugely, but I love you guys. Thank you so much. Sorry, Ellen.